Raina Campbell, your Chief Dream Driver, and welcome to the No Parking Podcast, where through conversations and discussions with creators like yourself, we'll find interesting approaches to help you take your dreams out of park, put them in drive, and ride towards success. Hey, dream drivers. I am so happy to be back podcasting with you guys. It has been such a long time. I want to say almost 2 months since you have heard from me. For everyone that is new to the podcast, Dreams in Drive is a podcast that's all about how you can take your dreams from park to drive. And I've been doing it over the past 4 and some change years. Yeah. And I think that stories are our ways to really connect with others and also be inspired on the ways that we can move our own dreams, hopes, ambitions, aspirations forward. So this episode is actually very, very special. And we'll be talking about this later, but the podcast has reached its 1 million download mark. Actually, that happened a bit earlier in the year, but with all that has been going on in the world, I kind of just was in this space where I wasn't quite yet ready to announce. But now, here it is, 1 million downloads later. In this episode, I'm going to be sharing some of the lessons I've learned along this way to 1 million. I know for a lot of content creators, for a lot of podcasters, for a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of dream drivers there in general, we have these big goals. And I know that 1 million for me was something that I've always wanted to achieve. So I've loved to be able to tell you all how I did that, and give you some of the things that I've done along the way in order to achieve this goal. But first, this is your first time listening. I really hope that you guys, once you hear this episode, I hope that you share it with your own audiences. I haven't been posting episodes in 2 months, so y'all gotta get people hype again. You know, the best way to share is to post on Instagram, screenshot, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you are online. Make sure that you are interacting and engaging. Our social media handles are Dreams and Drive across the board. And I would also love for you all to make sure that you are subscribed wherever you're listening, whether that be Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you get notifications every time we have a new episode. And a lot of people always ask me, hey, Raina, I want to buy Dreams and Drive gear. How can I do it? Get your Dreams and Drive t-shirts and crew necks at dreamsanddrive.com/shop. That's dreamsanddrive.com/shop. And that's also a great way to support the show. If you want to know how you can support during this pandemic, I really appreciate that love, guys. Now, we're about to be back full swing with episodes after this. So you'll be hearing from guests again. You'll be hearing from me again. So I want to make sure that you all are really tuned in and you're back to get your dream driving on. All right, but let me tell you a little bit more about what I've been up to since February, since we last spoke. Well, to give you guys some context, our last episode was actually with the founders of Black Women Talk Tech. And I went to their conference actually at the end of February. And during this time, this was kind of like the beginning of the COVID-19 scare. At this point, we knew that the virus was in China, but I think a lot of Americans, myself included, didn't really understand just what this would mean for us in America. Since then, it's now April, and the coronavirus is now our way of life. For many of us, I'm still living in a shelter-in-home quarantine state, New Jersey. You know, life as we knew it, life as we know it now has completely changed. And I always say, like, you know, life is a journey. We don't ever know what's going to happen, but there's so many unexpected consequences, unintended consequences of this virus. And it's really given me a perspective on what it means to act now, what it means to cherish now, and what it means to really invest in something that we believe in, right? Because there's so many people who are falling victim to this disease that are leaving behind loved ones, leaving behind dreams. And I've had people personally affected. It's just really been an emotionally taxing time, but at the same time, it's been very enlightening. For me personally, a lot of people have asked, you know, how has the podcast been affected? How has business been affected? So as far as the podcast, because I wasn't really putting out new episodes, it wasn't necessarily affected because I can do this from anywhere. That's one of the joys of podcasting, right? But at the same time, I just think emotionally, I just wasn't in the headspace to really want to put anything out. There's a lot of talk I saw of people saying, this should be the most productive time. You guys should be out here killing it. But for me, that just was not happening. And I don't feel bad about it because I know when it's time to get back and busy, it's going to be time. Things were happening in my life. Things were changing. And I'm like, I'm not going to push myself during this time. And that's a big lesson that I learned that I'll talk about in the Road to 1 Million is you don't have to push yourself if you don't have the capacity. And sometimes there are times when you just need to rest. And I've been able to really do a lot of thinking, a lot of reflecting over these past 2 months. And I think we all need that rest sometimes. I think that this virus, this whole pandemic has really been forcing a lot of people to rest and to think about what really matters. But on the business front, there are some things that I personally was just a little bit hesitant about. I have gone into the events producing space, had a new client, and we had to push back the event that we were working on for this summer. And we also don't really know what that event may look like for the future. Is this something we're going to have to do in the fall? Is it something we're going to have to do next year? Those are the kind of things that we're thinking about. And it also has impacted my ability to really get new clients because I don't want to go into the live event space if we don't even have restrictions aren't lifted. But I've been forced to really think about what are other ways that I can bring in revenue? What are other things that I can do? What are my other skills? So that's been really, I think, a good exercise for me as well. And I think for a lot of us, we all have had to really embrace the P word, which is pivot. And I just want to give encouragement to anybody who life has significantly changed because of this virus, because of this pandemic. Don't give up hope. I really think there can be blessings. There's always silver linings to things, and there may be blessings that come out of darkness. There may be blessings that come out of despair. So please, please, please keep yourself in line with what your personal mission is, but don't feel bad about if the timeline for that has changed, because as dream drivers, we know that we can plan and things can happen. But as long as you know what the vision is, as long as you know what the mission is, as long as you at least don't give up, I think that's what really is going to get a lot of us through these next few months. But let's get into this, guys. So 1 million downloads. It's crazy because when I think back to October 2015, when I first had this idea for Dreams and Drive, I never had this desire to want to be a big podcaster. I just wanted to make something and put it out every week and see what would happen if I became consistent. I wanted to connect with people. I wanted to hear people's stories. I wanted to share people's stories because I really feel like stories are what have kept me going throughout my life. And I know hearing other people's stories, reading about other people's stories, researching other people's stories has really been also a big, big factor into my own success, my own personal success, my own personal drive. And I know that they're the thing that can inspire others. So thinking about it now, as we look at the stats of Dreams and Drive, 4.5 years later, over 1,030,000 downloads, guys. We have been, people from over 100 countries have heard Dreams and Drive, have been in contact with Dreams and Drive. We've had over 220 guests, 235 episodes. And for the majority of this, it's been a one-woman show. Me producing, me editing, me pitching guests for these past 4.5 years. And I've learned so much throughout this entire journey, guys. I was pretty naive back when I first started the show because I didn't know what it could be. But at the same time, I think sometimes not knowing what it could be is, there's this joy and innocence, and there's this potential and innocence, because when you don't know, there's nothing that's holding you back. And as things came to me, as opportunities came to me, I just embraced them and I just kept going. I just kept moving forward. And I've gotten to really learn so much about myself and so much about others throughout this whole experience too. This episode is also going to be filled with some questions from you guys and some reflections from you guys. I've had people send these in to me a while ago, and life happens and we didn't have the episode when I thought we were going to have it, but I still want to share some of the things that you guys have sent in. And this one is coming from Shalene, and she says, congratulations on your 1 million downloads. What a thrilling milestone. You're absolutely crushing it. I would ask you how you reached this milestone, but I already know it's because of your hard work, consistency, doing the research, providing valuable content, and engaging with your audience. Thank you, Shalene. She continues, you are such an inspiration, and I have received so many gems from you and your guests. Your authenticity is the icing on the cake. Thank you for being such a light in the podcasting community. Wow. It's really people like that and reflections like that why I keep doing this, right? Rich Keller always asks, what are you doing this for? And I think one of the reasons my answers to that is really because I know that this is impacting other people. And I know that there are people who are listening to this episode and are just so motivated to continue their own missions, their own dream driving journeys. So that's why I do it. But let's get into the lessons, guys. It was hard to collect just 10 lessons I've learned along the way. And I know that there are so many more, but I wanted to keep this concise because I think there are things that anyone, if you're a podcaster and you're trying to grow your own podcast and 1 million downloads, if you are just any business owner trying to achieve any big goal, I think these are things that are just really can apply anywhere, right? These tips can apply to anyone. So here are the lessons. So number 1, right? Narrow down on your niche and your market. When I first started Dreams and Drive, I knew that it wasn't going to be for everyone. And I think that's the biggest thing that anybody who is starting something is you have to figure out who is it that you want to speak to and what's that market looking like. I come from a marketing background, so it was something that I knew came natural to me, but I really had to think about what is Dreams and Drive going to be? What's going to make it special? Who am I speaking to? What's the market size? And really doing that in the beginning, like I wanted it to be inspirational content, storytelling content that was focused on people who want to build businesses, that want to build brands of some sort. So in the beginning, I had a lot of guests who were telling the stories of how they did it, and I think that's also a big thing when building and creating your niche is thinking about how you want to tell your stories. What is the thing that you want people to get out of it? And there are certain types of people that want to learn certain types of things. And this whole idea of how they did it, what was their success stories, those are specific types of content that a specific type of person may want to know, and then figuring out what industries I want to represent. In the beginning, I was really big in beauty and lifestyle and what age group, what demographic. I would really say that narrowing down on that niche and market in the beginning and not trying to be something to everyone really helped in just growing an audience. And then number 2, as I say a lot of times, is becoming a student of marketing in the beginning was something that helped me. I love the book Guerrilla Marketing. And if you guys are listening to this, I do have recommendations at dreamsanddrive.com/bookstore. Some of my favorite books, my favorite reads. Guerrilla Marketing was a book that I read right when I got out of college, and it just drilled in me all the different types of marketing that you can be doing, out of the box things that you can be doing if you want to grow anything, a business, a brand, whatever, right? So when in the beginning of Dreams and Drive, I was applying all these different principles. I knew that I had to have my branding on point. I knew I had to have a logo. I knew I had to have brand colors. I was thinking of assets that I could share. I was on social media. I was doing a lot of stuff. I was doing different things on the website, making sure that SEO on the website was good. The show notes were there from day one. I was not playing when it came to marketing. And I do think that a lot of us sometimes get scared about it. But if you want to build something, if you have these audacious goals, I really do think that in the beginning, even if you don't know it yourself, I think that sales is something that's important. Learn to be a seller. Even if you don't have, I know a lot of us aren't going to have teams in the beginning. And so you have to really know how to sell yourself, sell your brand, sell your mission. So become a student of marketing, become a student of sales, always test, always try. Look at all of look at your thing that you're creating as an experiment. You're constantly tweaking little things. You're constantly seeing what's working, what's not working, and you're doing something with it, right? And I think that goes along with the idea then of number 3, which I would say is become a student of your data and your analytics. If you're going to be out here testing and trying and using different platforms and using different things, then you need to then make sure you understand your data and your analytics. And this stuff is not sexy, but I'm being real with you about how I, Raina Campbell, grew Dreams and Drive to 1 million downloads. And I know that looking at my data, making sure that I was going in every week and looking at my statistics, my podcast hosting provider is Libsyn. It's something, I used to have SoundCloud in the beginning, but I would highly recommend Libsyn if you want to try it. I actually have a code for that. If you want to get 2 months free of Libsyn, you can use the code DID at checkout to get that, and you'll get the rest of this month whenever you signed up, and then the following month free for hosting. But I really like Libsyn, that's Libsyn, because of the statistics on there. And I was able to create a report. Every day at 8:30, I get my daily stats download. So I knew how many episode downloads I had as of 8:30, and it gave me the previous 7 days downloads as well. So me just understanding how my podcast episode flow looked, really being tuned in with the data every month, analyzing what the month-over-month growth was, looking at analytics across all platforms, Google Analytics for my website. There's this platform or this site that I use that gave me like weekly updates from the site. It's called Quill Engage. That's Quill Engage. That was something else I've used. But don't be afraid to actually be a student of the analytics. Instagram, if you have a branded platform, you should definitely have a business profile or influencer profile, whatever it is. You should be looking at your stats. I think a lot of us get tired of that and get scared of it, but if you don't understand how something is working, you'll never know how you can make it better. And I think as any entrepreneur, as any dream and driver, we're always trying to figure out how we can make things better, how we can make ourselves better, how we can make our platforms better. And this was really an important, integral part to doing that. So becoming a student of data and analytics is integral to this journey, guys. Like I even knew, what an episode would be, if an episode would be, I'll take that out. All right. This one is probably should be apparent, but I'm going to say it because I think we can think that things are going to happen quickly. So I launched Dreams and Drive on January 1st, 2016, and I hit the 1 million download mark, about 4 years later from that. 4 years. A lot happens in 4 years, right? 4 years is 1,460 days, guys. 1,460 days that I was committed to putting out an episode every week. I want to say at least for those 4 years before I took this big break, I was putting out an episode once a week. And that consistency, right? The number 4 thing is consistency. I think a lot of us give up too quick. We give up on ourselves. We give up on our ideas. When things aren't working, we say that they'll never work. But I had to be in it to win it, in it for the long run, not in it for short-term success, because I had realized that I had given up so many times in the past, and probably for good reason, because I found what I really love, which is podcasting. But I gave up once things didn't really pan out the way that I wanted. In the beginning, when Dreams and Drive launched, I had like 100 downloads. I don't even remember how many downloads I had per episode. And I could have really said, oh my God, this is so bad. I'm never doing this again. I'm a failure. And sometimes we think that big milestones we should equate with success, right? But when I think about it, it's not the 1 million downloads that is the success. It's the road to 1 million that, for me, that I'm really proud about, because I know I was going to hit this mark eventually if I never gave up. And that's the mindset that I think a lot of us dream drivers need to take on, is like, you're going to hit the mark if you don't give up, right? A winner is somebody who doesn't give up on themselves, right? I know for a lot of online creators, that consistency is really the hard thing. You have to be committed to it. You have to get yourself disciplined to say, all right, I'm going to show up even if other people aren't showing up for me. And that's what I did week over week. I was putting out episodes. I was going to do it. And I just knew the thing that motivated me was like, I knew what happened when I wasn't consistent, and I didn't want to do that anymore. So I had to really say to myself, all right, what am I going to do different this time that will really help me get to a goal or really help me learn about what I'm capable of? You got to be in it for the long run, because you never know where the journey will take you, guys. You never know where the journey will take you. So don't give up on yourself. So in that consistency, then we had number 5, which was building community. And I'll never forget, I think one of my first guests, David Michael Jones, he told me, like, it's funny because when we first started working together, because he's helping me in the beginning of the podcast, he was like, Rada, you got to be social on social. Because in the beginning, like on Twitter and stuff, and on Instagram, I wasn't actually talking to people. I wasn't actually creating community. And once I thought about, all right, I had this whole idea that at the beginning, the podcast was called No Parking. I wanted to call it the Dreams and Drive community. I had to name the community, which is really good, right? Give people a name, give people something to believe in. We're going to call each other Dream Drivers. But I had to really then engage and become this leader of some sort and start learning more about my audience. And so I would ask questions, I would do surveys, I would really get into the comments, get into my DMs, respond to people. And over the past, 4 years, I really felt like I started to build a community. I know my listeners, there's some people who, you'll hype me up in a DM and I'll respond. We'll have little online conversations. I knew that community was going to be very important, because every great brand has followers, has loyal followers, but also there are people who all stand together for something. So for example, like Nike, right? When you think of Nike, you think of Just Do It. You think of these people who are going hard for this whole idea of, all right, we are people who just do it. So in your own thing that you're building, you have to think about, how can you then build community? What are the things that you can do to really keep your following engaged, to really put yourself out there in whatever capacity that you're comfortable with, but still letting people know what being part of your brand really means. And I think that's going to look different for everyone, but I know if you're trying to hit this big goal, right? For me, I learned that community is very important. It can be hard, right? Building a podcast can be hard. There's other people doing things at different timelines than you are. So the thing that I had to learn about was number 6 is staying focused. Realizing that my journey is my journey and your journey is your journey. There are a lot of other podcasters who come after you, people who have hit this 1 million download mark before me, people who have hit this 1 million download mark in a day, and if you're not focused, if you're not thinking about what you're building, if you start, letting your blinders up and comparing yourself, like you cannot compare yourself to what others are doing. I mean, there is a healthy analysis of competition, but I always believe in the collaboration over competition. Like, I am friends with podcasters who technically are my competitors. We do the same type of content. We interview the same types of people, but I don't look at them as competitors. I look at them as people that I can also learn from as well. Collaboration over competition. Get to know some of your competitors, learn from what they're doing, become friends with them. I think there's room for us all to win. And that's something that I had to learn. Like, you're going to win on your own terms, and your win is not going to look like this person's win. And once you're staying focused on your own goals, once you're staying focused on your own mission, and you're just in it for the long run, a lot will come out of that. So number 7 here is partnerships, relationships are key in so many ways, guys. Like, I could not do this by myself. Although I am a one-woman show when it comes to the production of this podcast, just the journey of the podcast, there have been so many partnerships, so many relationships that I have cultivated. I'm going to just list a few of them right now that I think are important for you guys to know about. My guests were one of the biggest things in me growing, because number 1, they're trusting me with their stories. They're trusting my platform with their stories. And then they're trusting me with their audience. Because once they share, I am now a guest to their audience, right? As they were a guest to my audience, I am now a guest to their audience. And I've been able to learn so much from my guests. They have been advocates for me in so many ways. Those relationships have been very important. Relationships with other podcasters, somebody who's been there from the beginning, is Barry of Podcast in Color. I remember on Twitter, I would always engage with her and she would engage with me back. And she had her Podcast in Colors Amped brunch in 2017 and invited me to speak there. I just love people like Barry because she's so committed to this podcasting thing, and just having her in my corner, somebody that I can ask questions, has really, really been super, super exciting for me. And I'm really grateful for people like her, my podcast mastermind, my super system mastermind, as I call it, Jamila of Journey to Launch, Dr. Joy of Therapy for Black Girls, Nikela of Side Hustle Pro, Art Steele of the Insecure podcast. Those ladies have helped me in so many ways, right? I think a lot of times we think that this journey is going to be one that's alone, that we do alone, but no, like you really, really have to start cultivating relationships with all types of people. Tell people about what it is that you're trying to build. There are people out there who will be able to help you in so many ways. Even with like guests, the people that like the publicists that I've worked with, the business managers, all those people are now my Rolodex of, hey, how can I find ways to help them? And if things come up, they'll find ways that they can help me. Think about how you can start building reciprocal relationships where you're giving and also you're receiving. I think sometimes selfishness and wanting to keep everything to yourself holds a lot of people back. When you start thinking about how you can share the wealth, how you can share the knowledge, then that's when you really start shining, right? Number 8, partnerships press. Building the reach was so important. For me, I love when people reach out to me and said, hey, can we share your story on our platform? And in the beginning, who was I to tell somebody no, right? I'm starting out too. So if you're starting out and you want to interview me, let's do it. Let's think of ways that we can both win. Let's think about how we can build reach. And I think that a lot of us need to start thinking about what are ways that we can get our audience in front of other people's audiences that would be receptive to the mission. I started to do like live events and panel events and speaking. I also think that podcast swaps, so doing ad swaps on other people's podcasts. I remember this is how me and Dr. Joy first linked up. On Twitter, we were talking about ad swaps, and she let me do an ad on Therapy for Black Girls. And Therapy for Black Girls at that point was way bigger than Dreams and Drive, but I did an ad for her on mine. She did an ad for me on hers, and that helped us get a whole bunch of new people on each of our platforms. And I appreciate things like that. And I think that we have to think about how can we partner up strategically and genuinely with other platforms. Another big thing for me too was distribution. And you have to understand, right? Understand what your type of business needs for success. So podcasting is really all about distribution, getting the audio to as many ears as possible. And there are big distribution platforms that can do that, right? Spotify right now is really trying to grow in the podcast distribution game, where they're finding ways to get new podcasts or get podcasts out to people. They have curated podcast playlists. They have all this stuff. But the big game from the beginning has always been Apple Podcasts, right? They were kind of the godfather of podcasting. And I thought, I need to be an Apple Podcast. How can I do that? And for me, reaching out to the head of Apple Podcasts on LinkedIn one day, I was able to have a conversation and pitch, and he featured episode 35 of my show. Episode 35 was featured on the homepage of Apple Podcasts back in 2016 for a week. And just that one action of him doing that really set my podcast to a new level when it came to downloads. And from there, I was able to have a new audience and nurture that audience and build. So you have to really, number one, understand what is the channel by which success is measured or success can grow. And for me, that was distribution. I really think that's specific to why I was able to see the success, because I wasn't out here blocking my blessings. I really just wanted to get the podcast out to as many people. And of course, being smart about it and not just being on any old thing. Like you're not going to see, there are platforms that there might not be a great brand match. But if it is, even if the platform is small, I gave people a chance. And I think people understand that hustle in the beginning. So really, really think about how you can build reach, how you can really keep track of press as well, because that's a big thing as well. You need to make sure you're keeping track of all this stuff. If you go to dreamsanddrive.com/press, you'll see all the different outlets that I've been on. And that's, people go to that and they're like, oh, wait, she's someone who actually does press. I would love to reach out to her as well. And it's all about keeping that funnel open, guys. So number 9 is listening to the audience, right? Listen to your audience. Listen to what they say they love. Listen to what they say they don't like, because one of the things that I know a lot of us do sometimes is when you're building something, you get stuck in the heads down mode. You're building, and you don't then realize what people are saying about the brand, what they're enjoying, what they're liking. And if you're smart, if people are liking something, you'll do more of it. I'll tell you guys a story. So for me, the thing that people always say they liked a lot of, and I didn't, and I don't think I do enough of it, are solo episodes, right? People love the stories with the guests, but they love hearing my own story. They love hearing me sharing these solo tips. And they always told me they liked it, and I didn't do a lot of them. And that's something that I personally would, if I could go back, I'd probably do more of them. But whatever your podcast is, whatever your brand is, if your audience is liking something and they're really engaging well with something, use that as a lesson to then think about, all right, how can I get to know my audience better? Now, that might be surveys, that might be, speaking to them one-on-one. But there's so much insight that you can learn from getting into your audience and understanding what they need and how you can give it to them. Now, not everything that everyone says they need is what you have to provide. You have to kind of figure out if that's the best thing, do some testing, see if there's actually traction on what they say. But there's a lot of value in listening to your audience. And I would really recommend for anyone trying to achieve a big goal to do that. So then lastly, the things that I've learned as well, the last thing, number 10 here, is this idea of embracing the bad. Not everything was good during these 4 years. That's something I want to say to you guys. Not everything was good. I've had a lot of things have happened to me. A lot of things I didn't talk about till after the fact. If things happen according to plan, and if things happen the way you think they are going to happen all the time, then what can you really learn about anything, right? I remember there were times where I felt like I wanted to give up. The podcast wasn't growing enough. Other people were out here doing other things. But I had to then think to myself, it's really all about perspective. Because there are people who are looking at me and saying, oh my gosh, I wish I could be on this level. There were times when I didn't have the money, or I wasn't willing to spend the money to invest in certain things. Even now I look back at it and I'm like, I didn't invest a lot of I could have been a lot, let's just say I could have probably reached this goal a lot quicker. I think the thing for me that has always been a struggle is the investing part and spending money and hiring people. It's hard to let go of your baby sometimes. And I just didn't want to do that. And I think I'm facing the consequences of that. Also, there's just a lot of things I know that I could still be doing. And sometimes I beat myself up about it. But you can't dwell in the negativity for too long. You can embrace it. You can say, all right, I'm feeling this now, but this is not my end all be all. But do know that there are lessons to be learned in failure. There are lessons to be learned in when things don't go right. And if you take that as lessons and not as your permanent situations, you will grow, you will move, and you will keep on going. And that's what I had to learn a lot of times too. I could do a whole episode on all the things bad that happened to me. So if you guys want to hear about that, let me know. But I really want to just keep this real. There are things, I know you guys. I know you. I know if you listen to this, there are things that you've had to go through and you're like, wait, how will I ever get through this? But you will. You will. I was watching this movie on Netflix, Extraction, and I may be getting this quote wrong, but there was this quote where the guy, the one of the main characters basically says, like, drowning isn't really the act of being submerged in water. It's staying there. Are you willing to let yourself stay submerged? Or are you at least going to fight? All right, but let's get into some listener question and answers, because I know you guys have some questions for me, and I definitely want to come in and answer them. So, number one question. This one is coming from Tanisha. She says, I've listened for a while, actually prior to starting my own business, but never really knew how it all got started, meaning Dreams and Drive. Did you always start out with your interviews, or did you just decide to pivot over time? If so, when did you know the time was right? So for me, there's other questions here, but I would encourage you guys to go back and listen to episode 2. That's where I really talk about how I started and got myself out of park. But in the beginning, Dreams and Drive was always this concept of I wanted to interview people. It was always virtual. So I've done probably 98% of my interviews have all been virtual via, Skype calls, Zoom conference calls. I've always done interviews because I've always loved this medium. It was the medium that I've honed since college days. I didn't pivot, but I did start doing more solo episodes because people wanted to hear more about them. So it's always been interviews. She said, did you invest in equipment starting out? Yes, I did. You can go to the Dreams and Drive website and then go to the blog or resources to see some of the things that I've invested in. If you want to have your own podcast, I invested in a mic. I already had my computer, and I invested in the call recording software. And that's really it. Like, I didn't weigh down myself with, all right, I need to do this, needs to be perfect. I wasn't really trying to do the whole perfect thing. And that was really my motto. It's like, I'm going to get this done and I'll improve over time. So I think a lot of us who are trying to reach these big goals, you don't have to necessarily be perfect from the beginning, but you can get better over time, as you should. And I definitely think that I have. So this one is coming from Amelia. She says, I would love to learn what specific tactics had the most direct impact in gaining downloads. So I'm just going to spill off some of the top 5 things. I think number 1, consistency. Your audience needs to know that you're consistent. You need to know that you're consistent. You can't just post episodes every 5 months and think, all right, I'm going to reach 1 million downloads. No, you got to put in that work time over time, day over day. So for me, it was consistency. Another thing I think too helped was guest selection. So, a lot of the guest people that I knew, but I had to make sure that their stories resonated with people, that there were things that people could learn from it. Because not everybody knows how to tell a story. And at the same time, not everybody knows how to interview people. And that was something that I learned too, is like, people need to be asked the right questions. So really getting the right guests, people that would share. Some brand names aren't always good names. So although somebody is a celebrity, they may not share, but sometimes some celebrities are what draw people in. And then there are some people who have these really micro niche audiences that are sharing, and they're growing. I was growing because they were sharing with their audience. So it really was about getting the right guests, getting the right stories, and being intentional about that. Another big thing I think was press and distribution. So getting on other people's podcasts, that whole marketing aspect, getting partnerships with big distribution platform providers. Those were really the big thing. And then growing my network too. When you have people who are advocating for you on your side, when you are just able to leverage relationships, things and questions get answered a lot easier, and things happen a lot easier too. So this one's coming from Brenda, and she says, to what do you attribute listeners' attraction to your podcast? I know why I consistently listen, but why do you think I and others faithfully listen and engage with you? So number 1, I really feel like people enjoy the stories. They enjoy the lessons. They enjoy what they're hearing and how it's inspiring them in their own lives. But to dig a little deeper, and it took me a long time to actually be able to admit this, is me. I think a lot of people come in because they enjoy the way I interview these guests as well. They enjoy the back and forth. They really enjoy the whole feeling that's created. And as a dream driver, I never wanted to necessarily be the face of the brand. And I told myself this, but at the same time, I think if somebody else was interviewing guests, this would be a different show. So realizing that your story is important is very important. And I think that's the basis of why community is being built. People are rallying around someone or something or some mission. And I really know how I want people to feel after each episode. I want them to feel inspired and empowered to continue on their own missions and stories. And I think that's important. And I know for me, my whole life, stories are what kept me going. And I want to be able to share that gift of storytelling with you all. And I think there people like Brenda, maybe whoever's listening to this right now, you guys can hear that in the way that I engage with people. Like, I genuinely love what I do, and I love interviewing people. And I think that love is something that is infectious and people enjoy. And I hope that you faithfully listen and engage because you believe in the mission and that you also are inspired by people's stories. I've had people on the show who are famous, who are not famous, but you get something out of every episode. This one is coming from Ms. Tony Etheridge, who's a project manager, social justice advocate, and community organizer, creator of the stage production So You Think You Can Advocate. And she says, so you've reached the 1 million download mark. Does it feel any different? No, it doesn't feel different. Actually, it feels like, all right, I got to keep going now. Next goal is 2 million. But at the same time, I do feel proud of myself. I feel like I did something. I did it. It's a goal that many don't accomplish. And it made me realize that we are our own biggest enemies sometimes. And if I told myself that, oh, I'm not worthy of 1 million downloads, or this whole podcast thing is a joke, and if I had given up, I wouldn't have gotten to this point. I wouldn't be able to share these learnings with you so that you all can stay inspired and empowered to achieve these goals, right? I gotta show people that, all right, 1 million is done and another big goal can be achieved as well. So I did think there's pride, but at the same time, I think there is also just this knowing that, all right, what's next? Oh, and then she had a question about dreams and drive and Corona. So she wants to know how has the interview process changed? And I just want to say that I've never done interviews. Most of them, I think probably like less than 5 interviews have ever been done face-to-face. So most of my interviews are done virtually. So that's been really good. I had the Front Seat Fridays that was in person, the video series that of course has stopped, but we'll see how things can change. I'm happy that I'm in a space that's digital because let's say I was doing in-person interviews, I would have to have pivot to this. So it is nice, I think, just to be able to still be able to produce content and not have to worry about Corona affecting that. Okay, and so then the final question here, and this is also coming from Tony. So she says, share how Dreams and Drive has put the car in reverse for the next generation of young women seeking media communication opportunities in your field. So I love the analogy there, the Dreams and Drive, PRNZ metaphor. So I want to say that Dreams and Drive, if we're thinking about putting it in reverse, it really is just putting the car in reverse and opening the door and saying, hey, you can come in too. Let's go. So I see reverse in this sentiment as just allowing the car to slow down so that you can get in and realize that you can create your own opportunities, that you can create your own. I was tired of interviewing for other platforms and people not really seeing the depth of my talents and also not really seeing the depths of people's stories. I used to do a lot of interviews and then transcribing them, and I felt like there was power in the actual hearing of the story, and I decided to do something about it. And I've always been something that if I can't figure out how someone can do it for me, I'll do it on my own, and I'll create my own platform. I'm not going to wait for someone to give me access to theirs. And I think a lot of us young women and young men in media need to think about how you can create your own opportunities and how you can advance your own platforms. And there are more platforms that needs to be created. There's room for everyone to win. And I just really hope that Dreams and Drive is an example to anybody who's an independent creative out there. If you have an idea, if you can dream it, you can do it. Thank you all for being a part of this 1 million downloads journey. I really do appreciate it. As I always said, this episode impacted you in some way. Please share it, share it, share it, share it. Share it with your community. Post it on Instagram stories, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We're Dreams and Drive across the board. A lot of people ask me, hey, Raina, how can I help Dreams and Drive? How can we support? If you want to support the podcast monetarily, I always encourage you to go to dreamsanddrive.com/donate, and there are different options there. Patreon is a good one for $5 a month. You can support the podcast. I do appreciate all my Patreons from this year. And then shop, right? If you want to quarantine in style with inspiration, Dreams and Drive crew necks and t-shirts are available at dreamsanddrive.com/shop. Go to dreamsanddrive.com/shop to support. I love to see people out here rocking their Dreams and Drive gear, so that would really mean a lot to me as well. We hit 1 million. What's next? 2 million? All right, guys. And you know what? Final thing. I would love to hear from you. So if you've reached the end of this, that means you are a super duper fan of Dreams and Drive, of this episode, of this content. If you haven't already left a review or Apple Podcast, then I would love to hear from you. So just go to Apple Podcasts, hit search Dreams and Drive, leave a review, and share your sentiments. I would love to share that on the next episode to see what you guys have been saying about the show, what you've learned over these past 4 years. Whenever you started listening in, that feedback is tremendous. So keep dreaming, keep driving. I'm excited to be back. Stay tuned for big things to come. Stay tuned for announcements. Lots of good things are happening this year, despite all the sadness that's around us. You got to find a way to remember that there's always sun behind the clouds. All right? Bye, guys.